What's up, smart homers? My name's Aaron, and in this video and the next few videos, I want to show you some major upgrades I did to my Workbench, where I do all my DIY projects, some new tools that I've collected over the past few years and months, and how I use them, and also how I've used 3D printing to organize them in a really satisfying way. If you're like me, you have very little time for projects between family life, the day job, and taking care of the house. And there's no way to kill the mood for a project like not having the right tool for the job, not being able to find the tool, or not being able to wrap up the project easily because putting away the tools is a hassle. It's been my mission for the past couple months to work on this, to organize my tools, get all the right tools for the job, and have them right where they should be, easy to access and easy to put away. Why don't you guys just sit back and relax while I walk you through what I've been working on. This will definitely take a couple videos, but I think you're going to find it enjoyable, and don't worry, any of the products I'm using I'm going to leave links to in the description. If you don't know, my Workbench is in a closet in our basement hallway, and I started out this process by removing that Workbench and putting in a different one. Until recently, I've been using a sit-stand desk from FlexiSpot, which I did show in a previous video, but since I never really adjusted the height, I felt like those legs underneath were just taking up space. The other thing I didn't like is the black top of the desk because it collects fingerprints really easy and grease and can look dirty pretty easily, and it really reminds me of a high school science lab classroom table. Years ago, I built my office desk, the one behind me, out of a solid slab of birch butcher block countertop. I absolutely love this desk, it's super solid, and I decided that I'd go ahead and do the same material for this Workbench. I headed to the local hardware store to get a 74 by 25 inch by 1.5 inch thick slab of butcher block, some heavy duty shelf brackets, and some SPAC screws of 2 different sizes. Since my Workbench is in the closet, I have to adhere to the dimensions of the closet, and while the closet is plenty long enough at 77 inches long, it's only about 24 inches wide, so I had to cut down the long side of the butcher block so that it would fit inside. The butcher block was unfinished, so it needed a 200 grit rough sanding followed by a 600 grit smooth sanding before I could give it 3 coats of triple thick clear coat polyurethane. I lightly sanded between each coat to keep it smooth, but I didn't worry about a super smooth underside since that's not the working surface. It is important though that you make sure you cover the entire slab of butcher block, as the polyurethane will act as a moisture barrier and prevent this thing from warping years down the road. After that, I installed it in the closet and I used the 4 shelf brackets I bought to suspend it at a standing height. The long screws I used to secure the brackets to wall studs, and the shorter ones I used to keep the butcher block in place on the brackets. When putting in those small screws, I made sure I had nice spacing behind the butcher block between the wall and the butcher block countertop, and that's going to be not only for cords for different electronics slipping down behind there to plug in underneath, but also so I can put an LED strip along the back of the butcher block countertop for some accent lighting. I also ordered a couple of bar chairs from Amazon that match the aesthetic I'm going for here, so if I want to sit at this Workbench, I can sit on a tall chair rather than having something adjustable. The beauty of this Workbench is minimalism, but I knew that I was going to need some drawers because I have so many different tools, so I went with these 22 by 9 inch drawers from Vivo. The drawers aren't too deep, so they allow for some 3D printed cable management behind them, and in a future video I'll show you that, as well as the 3D printed organizers that I put inside these drawers. For now, let's move on to the pegboard system. I decided to go with IKEA's pegboard system solely because on Thingiverse there's a massive collection of hooks, containers, organizers, and special adapters for different tools that you can just download the models, print them out, and then you can hang your tools there. I put 4 of these pegboards on the back wall for my tool storage, 1 on the right hand wall of the closet, and I would have put 1 on the left, but as you guys probably saw in a previous video, that's where I put my network rack, so there's no space there. I went with black pegboards because that provides a nice contrast with all of my white tools. As you'll see, I went with a white theme for all of my tools, so it provides a nice contrast and it's easy to quick grab a tool and put it back, you know where it goes. It's really nice. In a future video, if you guys are interested, I'll go over all the different 3D prints that I made in order to adapt and fit my tools on this pegboard in a really orderly way. Pretty much I printed whatever I could from the collection on Thingiverse. I bought hooks where that was easiest on Amazon, and where neither of those would work, I custom designed and printed my own adapters and hangers for my tools. Another thing I want to show you guys is how I'm supplying power to the workbench. On the underside of the bench top, I installed a 13 outlet power strip. This is actually tied into my network rack UPS, and it should give plenty of power sockets underneath for my PC, 3D printer, and whatever else. What I like about it is that it has little tabs that stick off of the edges with holes in them for easily screw mounting this strip to the underside of my desk. It's so much better than those slotted hole style mounts, which this one also does have if you want to use them, because with those you have to put the screws in first and they have to be a precise distance from each other, and then you got to fumble around trying to get the strip to hook onto those screws. What a pain. You'll see when I go over my tools that most of them are battery powered, and as many as possible are USB-C rechargeable or micro USB chargeable if that's all I can get my hands on. To give myself as much flexibility with charging these devices as possible, I got a USB charging hub and put it on the bench top under my network rack. It's a 10-port, 166-watt gallium nitride charger that has two 20-watt USB-C PD ports, 3 regular USB-C ports, 2 18-watt USB-A ports, and 3 regular USB-A ports. This should be plenty of ports to handle charging multiple of my tools at the same time, and should be able to handle all of my tools except for maybe my Pine-Sol soldering iron, which I may want a higher wattage power adapter for. In addition to these, I also added a 5-outlet benchtop power strip for quick access whenever I need, and that's especially useful for plugging in a higher wattage power adapter for my Pine-Sol or whatever else needs higher wattage. Every workbench, in my opinion, needs a PC, and this is no exception. I like having a PC with my 3D modeling software on it right at the workbench, so that the place that I come up with the design is the place that I can draw it up. I like being able to go from design all the way to prototype at the same desk, and that's why I also have my 3D printer on this bench, which I'll go over in a future video, but all I can say for now is that this Ender 3 V3 Plus is a monster of a machine for the price. Anyway, back to the PC, I also have the slicer on there so that I can slice files and send them to the printer right from there. So again, all in one from design right to prototype. I mounted the PC on the underside of the desk using a Vivo PC mount, and then I printed some SCOTUS to VESA adapters for my monitor so that I can actually hook my monitor right onto the SCOTUS pegboard. This VESA adapter is really just 2 3D printed parts that you screw to the back of your monitor, and then you can easily hook your monitor onto the pegboard and you can move it around to whatever holes you want depending on how you want to position it. I also vinyl wrapped the monitor with some white vinyl because I wanted to match the aesthetic of white on black. To go along with the PC, I also got a keyboard and mouse. And the keyboard is a keyboard I saw on TikTok, believe it or not, and it is one of the nicest, or maybe the nicest keyboard I've ever used. It's the Ala F99 keyboard, and it was advertised as the creamiest keyboard ever, and I'm telling you, this thing is the most satisfying keyboard I've ever typed on. It's so nice I actually got 2 and put one here at my desk as well. I like having that full-size keyboard because it has the number pad, and if you guys have done 3D modeling, you know that having a number pad is really useful, almost critical. My go-to mouse for any kind of design, editing, even gaming is the Logitech MX Master 3S, so this time I went with a pale gray version as it matches that white aesthetic that I have going on. One other thing I'll mention that I have at this workbench, it could be considered a tool, I'm going to consider it as part of the PC setup, is a pair of noise canceling headphones. These ones from Sony are a great deal because they're only like $99, they're super lightweight, the noise canceling is pretty decent, and they're a great way to put on some relaxing music to kind of tone out any of the sounds around you and to get some hardcore work done. They're nothing fancy, but they're super comfortable to me and they do exactly what I need. Anyway, that about wraps it up for my new workbench setup. Like I mentioned before, in the next video in this series, I'm going to go over all the different tools that I've collected over the past few years and months and how I use them at my workbench. Some of these tools I think you're going to be surprised by, like my 3D printing pen, which is surprisingly useful, but we'll get to that in the next one. I know some of you guys have been waiting for my 80 by 32 LED matrix where I used a 10-channel controller to make this massive matrix, and honestly guys, it's coming, but I needed to have my workbench set up so that I could properly do the testing, and I needed to have my 3D printer set up so that I could print the housing for this thing. So it's all coming together, I promise you guys, you just gotta hang on a little bit. I know my videos have been a little bit sporadic lately and not as frequent as they were at the beginning of this year, and that's because life has just gotten busy, but I appreciate you guys sticking around for the ride. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching. See ya.